Good evening and welcome to the April meeting of the Historical Commission. We are again meeting virtually. We had anticipated meeting outside, but they allowed us to have a Zoom meeting. The Zoom meetings weren't working out for us because the times were conflicting with people's schedules, as most of us are in education or commuting, and it's just so difficult to get an early Zoom meeting scheduled. We can do later meetings, but earlier meetings were just too crazy for all of our schedules. And originally this committee used to meet at 9:30 in the morning, which ended up being kind of a very convenient time for most of us who have sort of scholarly or campus work to figure it out that particular meeting on it. We used to be the second Tuesday of every month at 9:30 at the Township building. Worked out for most of us pretty well. So hopefully someday we can go back to that. Currently the Township has us scheduled for May and for June as Zoom meetings. And I did request 7:30 on May 13th. So hopefully that will happen, but we'll see if we get postponed again to the fourth Thursday. That's the second Thursday, but we may get postponed to the fourth Thursday again. So I'll just keep you aware. That said, there isn't a whole lot of business for the Historical Commission to do. So the three of us could probably approve the minutes of the last meeting. Does anyone have any changes to those minutes? Joe, do you have anything?
No, I looked at them before. I sent Becky my comments. So no, I make a motion to approve.
So that's a second. Okay, approve the meeting minutes. Yes, I vote yes. Everyone else, I guess it's unanimous.
Yep.
Okay. Becky, are you going to take these?
Yeah, I can do it. Helen, I just want to make sure that you got my letter from before and understand that probably next month is my last month.
Okay, well, I know you have to renew, so you're not going to be renewing.
Yeah, I'm just not going to renew.
Okay. I'm sad.
So, yeah, I know. I can't, it's just not working out with my
you know, and there's not much for us to do. It's very boring. I'm sorry to say, but that is true. It is rather boring right now. And I know I don't want to lose Joe, and I don't want to lose you, and I don't want to lose Mr. James. Nice, but I can't understand why people would hang around, considering the way that this committee is going right now too. It's not like it's a really exciting place where we can make a lot of changes. So I understand, Becky, and I appreciate you, and I love what you do. So if the Historical Society gets going again, I hope that you will come and speak to the Historical Society and give us some information that you know so well. I mean, more than anyone else, especially on cooking in the Victorian era. So keep in touch. And can I call on you for things that we do if we get some?
Absolutely, you know, okay. And then at some point I might be able to come back. I just feel like
right now it's overwhelming.
Yeah. And
I know you've got another book that you're writing, so
yeah, I have a couple of those things and just, you know, just other things. So, you know, at this point it's just tough, but yeah, definitely keep me in mind for other things. And I love
certainly
the history.
will, and I encourage you to come back because there'll always be an opening for you, Becky.
Thanks.
At least from us, you know, the politicians,
Thanks.
but at least from us, we're very happy to work with you and hope that we can do that again.
Thank you.
Anyway, so you did identify last time that we needed action items, and that was a really good suggestion. So I took it to heart, and I actually wrote down on my minutes from last, you know, on my agenda for tonight, to mention that we did. I know Joe did his action item. I did my action items, except contacting Monica. It was just too difficult to get a hold of her. And Jim, I did contact, and unfortunately, as did Joe, we had some misfires in that kind of venue. He He did return some information from my email to him. I had sent him an email asking him all kinds of questions after the last meeting on the things that we were interested in doing. And he answered some of them, but not others. So we still do not have the inventory of properties. We still do not have any kind of real record of the interior of the house on Mill Road, and Joe was handling that part and was extremely frustrated, right, Joe?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I reached out and sent a message following the last meeting to get access, then never heard back from him. So I reached out directly to the owner through his attorney because it was in the planning commission minutes. And the owner was nice enough to call me back, and he said, well, Joe, you're welcome to come out, but I don't understand why, because Jim was already out here and took pictures. So, you know, no invitation to the historical commission in terms of, you know, us to join them or anything like that. I'm not even sure if we'll receive the pictures, so.
And he did reply to me that he had told you that he went out himself to the meeting with the owner and had taken pictures, correct?
Jim didn't tell me that. No, I never heard back from Jim at all. The
okay.
owner told me that.
Well, and there was some comment about that the pictures would be put up on a Google Drive, which he then sent me a connection to, but they never appeared, and I can't get into that Google Drive. You really have to add members to your Google Drive that you give access to. So just giving us the address of a Google Drive and a password doesn't necessarily mean that you get in. So it looks like Dan is here. Dan, are you here? Dan Grenier, can you unmute?
There we go.
Can you say again which house you're talking about, just so I have it for the minutes? Because
560 Mill Road.
what is it?
560. Yeah.
Mill Road.
Okay. Thank you.
I know Joe was concerned that Jim would not be able or would not understand the kinds of pictures that Joe wanted to take, which are basically rather close-up pictures of the joints in the joinery. I know the house on Mill Road had plywood floors, but I'm pretty sure underneath that plywood there would have been original beams. So Joe was interested in looking at how the beams were attached to the stone walls, various things that you could see in the attic from the original structure of the house would be very interesting to help date other houses in Lower Makefield. That was the point. We had tried to set that up many, many years ago with Jeff Marshall when the Robert Palmer house was taken down, which was just on the sidewalk next to Makefield Executive Quarters. There's this crazy little bend in the sidewalk right there. And that was actually because it was going around this old stone house that sat very close to the road, sort of like Mr. Natick's house on Heacock Road. And the township gave the developer permission to demolish it. But before that, we had been fighting to try to save it. And Jeff Marshall got permission from the developer to go in and actually photograph the entire house and to make a movie so that we would have that kind of record for construction, pre-1800 construction in the township. I'm pretty sure Jeff actually charged the township for that service, and I don't think we ever got a copy of it. At least I didn't see a copy of it. I know Jeff Marshall probably has one at the Heritage Conservancy. And it just occurred to me that we probably should ask him for what happened to our copy of that, since public money did pay for it. Anyway, we would like to do the same with the house on Mill Road is the inclination, Dan, and we're kind of hitting a brick wall talking to Jim because he returns some emails, but not all of the information that we ask him for, and seems to be a little, he's saying he's putting these stuff up online so we can see it, but we're not getting to see it. So it is a problem.
Okay, I'll
Could you reach out
Joe,
to
what
him?
what I can do, your email, sorry, I had it up on my phone a second ago and went to sleep on me. Your email to Jim on the 7th?
Yes, yeah,
I can just reply all and say, hey, how's this going?
right.
Kind of spur them along.
I mean, I did speak to the owner, Helen. I don't know how much access we could have to the interior. I don't know if you've driven past the house, but there's like a tree that fell on it. So he was actually very concerned about how, from a liability point of view. And we understand that, so, but like you said, I mean, the more pictures we can get and the more up close pictures that we can get that help to date the craftsmanship in the 1750 timeframe in this area would be helpful.
Yeah, okay, that makes, that makes a lot of sense. But I am concerned about the Cricket property and whether there's going to be any coordination with the Historic Commission at all, or are you, Dan, do you have any sense of that, or are we just going to be relying on the Harb to do this historic portion?
Hold, I'm typing the email to Jim right now on the 560 Mill Road. So
Yeah.
one, I don't want to lose that very quickly.
Okay,
Asking for any access to any photos that are available, number
Yeah.
one.
That'd
Okay.
be a good starting point, yeah.
Any, and then generally how, any more follow-up in response to your email, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'd like to, did he get dimensions? Like, that's one of the things that you usually do is try to get, layout of the rooms and dimensions and document all that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I got you.
And we're only really concerned, or primarily concerned with the oldest part of the house. There is an addition on the house, but it's the oldest part we're most concerned with.
Dan, Jim did mention that the owner felt that there was liability in removing the stone. But a lot of it is cut stone, and it makes me very sad to think that that's going to go into Grove's landfill when it could be used for the cemetery wall and for other structures around the township that need rebuilding. And I would like to push back a little bit on that, to ask him if possibly the owner couldn't throw some of those stones into a public works truck that they could deliver and place someplace on either that property or in the back of the graveyard along the edge of the wall where we can utilize them. I mean, it just seems really stupid to put that into a landfill.
Yeah, I mean, today's Earth Day, right?
Yeah.
Along the same lines in some way, reduce, reuse, recycle.
And it's beautiful cut sandstone from this neighborhood, so
Yeah,
we're
no,
not going to get that again.
I get you.
I appreciate it a lot because, to me, it's just very upsetting. We heard from a local, actually Jeff Herco, who works at Bucks County Community College, knew that we were interested in obtaining some bluestone for our great room. And he said, the Bucks County Community College is throwing out all the slate. They're literally going to put it in the landfill. And I said, can you ask them if we could make a donation and we would like to collect that slate? And he said, they told, he came back with whatever you want, take it. They will, be very happy for you to cart it all away, which we did. We got 2 full trailers of about 24-inch greystone slabs and used it in our great room and paid the people who hauled it for us, but basically at very low cost. And otherwise that gorgeous cut stone would be in a landfill. So anything you can do to recycle, I know you're on that.
Yes, I'm a tree hugger.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll well, and as we move forward, let's keep Jim in the loop on that stuff, because he's the one that ultimately has the most interaction with any developers that can. Greg, our public works director, sometimes does too, but we'll have to, as we get closer to doing anything, we'll have to coordinate more and more closely with Jim and or Greg to see if we can't do something like that, because it makes sense. You're
Okay, I appreciate that.
You're right on.
I've been taking some heat this last month from various peoples and other groups who are concerned, of course, with Batterson Farm. And I'm just bringing that up under the development plans. Dan, I did go out and look at it. I know Joe went out and looked at it, and the paint job is shoddy. I can't say that it isn't shoddy. I understand Jim was sent back in an email, oh, well, it looked like it had been painted over before. Well, that might be true, but we had expected, a better level of restoration than
Yeah.
the previous.
So I spoke to Kurt about that too, because I saw some of the photos from the barn, or from, not the barn, I'm sorry, from
The
the
windows.
window, yeah, from the shutters and the sills. The original, I don't know if it was Jeff or Donna or someone else that took the photos, and it looked bad. It
looks
looked like
bad.
they took a thick paintbrush and just, my
Well,
father
Boy
was a
Scout,
painter
I
for
expected
35
that.
years. I would not have gotten out of my bedroom if I would have painted it like that. You know what I mean?
Right. And
Um,
we had scouts painted probably good 15 years ago, and I think they were the last people who actually painted it. So yeah, it looks like a young person's paint job, but it's actually worse because they should know better, and
yeah.
that just is very upsetting.
And I'm not sure when you went to see it versus this conversation. I had a conversation with Kurt after seeing Kurt, our township manager. I know, Becky, you're taking notes about that after seeing the photos, and it sounded like the shutters, whatever had been painted poorly. I don't know if I wasn't there, so of the photos, there were clearly some shutters and sills that had been painted poorly. He agreed with that, and they had the contractor strip that down and redo it. And at the same time, I also asked him, I said, hey, it looks like they painted the hardware onto, they just
Yeah.
like almost like they glued it on with white paint. He said, no, that shouldn't be the case anymore. They should have fixed that. So
Right.
I will admit have not driven by to see it, but
No.
my understanding was that was fixed. So
Okay.
hopefully
Well,
that
I
was the
haven't been in
case.
the last week, so
Okay.
I can go back and check.
No,
And Joe
I'm
can go
curious to
back and
see what
check.
happened, because
You know,
no, it
I
didn't look good in the photos that I saw either. I totally
Yeah,
agree.
and doesn't reflect well on that business, so they should really be required to take care of it. I'm glad Kurt's managing that. That's good. Okay, so as to the action items we had expressed before, I am following up on the various possible potentials for getting the monument replaced, the state historical marker put in. And I've contacted the man who runs the Ganges website. There is actually a website on the Ganges slaves, and he has pretty much identified that the brothers are actually grandchildren of the original Samuel Ganges, who was a freed slave on the ship Ganges. So other than that, I'm following up with reading original deeds and wills to try to figure out which of our original settlers of Makefield prior to 1700 are probably buried in the front half of that. I know William Yardley is there, but I'm not sure who else, probably Huff and some of the other people. So I'm kind of making a list of everyone that is probably there in Slade Hill in the front section, because that is our best bet to get that marker, is to identify the front section as an unmarked area that Quaker Friends would have used. And it's probably the only one left that's intact. And therefore, obviously could be used at some point for archaeology, but basically it should be left undisturbed because they didn't believe in marking their graves. They saw that as a sign of personal aggrandizement, so they didn't do it. Everyone's the same in life and death. Okay, SHPO has been contacted. I've sent a note to them about the Prickett estate. I didn't hear back from Jim. Again, that was another note to Jim. He said to call him, and I texted him I sent him an email on that and got no answer whatsoever. So I contacted SHPO to see what they have from the archaeology that they conducted, and see if I can get a copy of whatever was given to them. So we have a baseline of what the archaeology is that they discovered. I just want to have that in our records before this whole development starts and we get into
Good idea.
everything else. And then, as I said, we really want to have contact with Jim as it progresses and be informed if there's any decisions to be made.
Helen, did PHMC, have they responded with anything yet?
Yeah, they've gotten back to the SHPO's there's a state historic preservation office within the PHMC.
Yeah, oh, I know. Yeah, I know
so-
those guys.
Yeah, I'm been emailing back and forth with them right now on that. So I haven't heard back the latest part on what the archaeology looks like. I don't know whether it's even been done. I had heard it had been done. Jim had indicated it had been done, but I wanted to.
Yeah,
see if
I
they-
did ask, just so you know, I did ask the developer at our last
Right.
meeting what the status was, and they stated that it had been submitted to SHPO, and it was going through the review process.
Oh, okay, that
That
could be what's
so-
holding it up.
Yeah, so it's probably under review. There should be a package there of some data package. It's going through review. I don't know if anything's gonna have to, you know how that process goes, if they have to
Right.
update or edit anything. I don't know if they've gotten any technical comments or anything like that, but from my understanding is that the baseline work has been done, reports have been written and have been submitted to SHPO.
Yeah, I know from other areas that they also require one for this is off base, the house that is on the canal for the Scudder's Fall Bridge project. And supposedly there was a great deal of archaeology uncovered in that. And we had asked a long time ago, like 3 years, to get a report back from that because most of the artifacts were being grabbed by New Jersey to go to the State Museum.
Yeah.
And I had wanted them to at least give us some so that we could put them up in the house that they had restored. So that's in the back burner. I don't
That's
want
the
to lose
1790 house you're talking about?
Hmm?
Is that the house that they refer to as the 1790 house?
Yeah, which
Okay.
I think it was there before that, but anyway, that's okay. That's close enough. It's the Path House. So that, yes, absolutely. But I think it's going to be a bathroom, but you could at least have some kind of a marker with indications of, you know, all kinds of, I mean, the indigenous site, as far as I know, goes back to the age of the pyramids. I mean, it's like 3000 BC. So it would certainly be important to put that up for people who go in there, just so that they know. Okay, Barbara is handling the Wieners thing still, unless you've heard any update on that, Dan?
So I'm sorry, which one are we
The
talking
Wiener
about?
Schoolhouse,
Oh, is that the
Octagonal.
octagon?
Jim, I was going to contact Jim. He got back to me on that PennDOT is looking at a new way to do some kind of traffic calming and crossing for that huge intersection anyway. So hopefully he'll keep us in the loop with that.
Well, to your point, if PennDOT's looking to do something there, they may have to hire someone to do a Section 106 review if they do any
Oh,
improvements,
absolutely
and that
will.
would be part of it, right? So
Well,
we might be able to get in on that.
Steve Senesiero was on that probably 10 years ago. So he's the one who got the lane narrowed down to 1 so that it wouldn't disturb that site. So he is very aware of it, and I know he would be interested to see something happen there. So just keep it in your mind that, you know, you need to contact him about that. If there's any kind of pressure coming up, that would help.
I'll keep an eye on it.
And then the last thing on that list is new recruits. And we definitely, Becky announced just before you came on that she is not renewing. So we're going to sad to see her go. We really appreciate all she has contributed, but we need to have some new recruits, Dan.
Becky, when's your last meeting?
I guess it's next time because the letter says through May, so.
Okay, yeah, I can check the ABC list, as we call it. It shows it when everyone was appointed, their term, and when it expires.
Okay, yeah, the letter, and then I just won't renew it, so that's why I assume next month would be the last one.
Both goes without saying, thank you for all the
Oh,
time
no
you have spent
problem.
with us. It's
No problem.
these boards are a big deal. I was on the EAC for a year and a half before I was a supervisor, so I get it. I was on the planning commission in my hometown when I was in high school. It was a little different then,
Wow.
but I've been a geek for this stuff for a long time. But no, I definitely appreciate our volunteers and everything you do. So thank you very much.
No problem. Yeah, it would be great to get some young, I mean, gosh, if we could get a high school person or anyone young. would be
That's a
great.
unique it was I think the school district the school board may have a few high school representatives on the school board, which we did that in my hometown as well. But it would be neat to try and get some high school kids to take part, because there's always a nice, interesting perspective.
And
That
send
is
them,
nice.
there can be extra credit or something. I don't
Exactly.
know.
Yeah. Maybe I'll bring that up as a discussion item
Yeah.
for the supervisors.
Well, Joe and I are feeling like chopped liver now, but that's okay.
Oh no.
New business, Patterson Farm issues continue to be, there's pressure on you supervisors. I understand that. There's pressure on us. We're getting comments that we're not a very good historical commission, that we aren't, helping too much to preserve those. And something has to be done before the year's out, Dan. It's really serious.
So did you watch the meeting last night?
No, I didn't.
So let me give you an update.
Okay.
I'll be quick. So a little over 2 years ago, when I was the chair, I put on the start putting on the agenda township properties as an agenda item.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that was basically to start the process to come up with a plan to address all of our, Satterthwaite House on top of the list,
Right.
obviously, but all of our township properties, historic and otherwise. But most of the buildings that are township, I think, are likely historic, right? That's just the
Right.
nature of what we have of our assets. So the idea back then was to, we didn't really have a good inventory of what we own,
Right.
whether it's just a parcel or a.
I've been asking for that inventory.
Yeah, so it's so I asked them to inventory. I also asked them to give us rough order of magnitude costs to make
Right.
for any buildings or structures that we have, to make them, not make them make them habitable or safe at least.
Yes.
And I got that going about a little over 2 years ago now. It kind of stopped. They did a bunch of work that year, didn't really do too much of anything in 2020. Kind of,
Right.
I'd ask, but didn't get much play there. But now we heard last night that Remington Vernick, our township engineer, is now working on that rough order of magnitude cost approach to start to give us, as because we have to budget for all these things, and we need to know these costs so we can help prioritize based on the money we have. It's unfortunately that's reality to some extent. So Remington Vernick is almost supposed to be done with that soon. I was hoping for it, 2 years ago, but it's almost done, I'm told. So Supervisor Blundy put as a discussion item for me an ad hoc committee to address township properties. So that may be on our next agenda in the first meeting in May, to how we would establish that committee, its membership. Her baseline membership approach, at least what she presented, was fairly similar to Harb in terms of someone who real estate broker, historic, maybe a farmer, a couple others, but just clear roles, more structured than most of our committees, kind of like Harb is, in terms of clear backgrounds. And then moving forward with developing strategic vision plans and budgets and how to address all of these various things. I also brought up, specific to Satterthwaite, nobody ever mentions it, but I'm sure you know this, Helen, that the strategic vision plan that the Heritage Conservancy wrote up in 2007. Yes. So
I was helped write that.
What's that?
I helped write that. I was on that committee.
Yeah, I assumed. So I've been reading. It's not that lengthy of a document, so I've read through it a couple times. But I see the developing those types of plans for each property, if not even more detailed at this point, for structure properties with structures. So it's there. There's a plan in place to push forward. It's just, we don't think we're moving fast enough on it, but it's all driven, unfortunately, it's all driven by budget.
Do you see us having a place on that as a liaison, or do you see us just totally replaced? I don't want to think that we're going to have to try to staff this committee and that committee and have conflict, between the two.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think, again, this is all based on a 2-paragraph,
Minute, yeah.
just fairly brief discussion, high-level plan, but let's say it's a 6 to 8 person committee, right? Standard size. I
Yeah.
think they have 2 seats set aside for folks that might want to otherwise be on HARB or this committee, and then a couple seats for someone who might be more into, kind of like HARB, might be more real estate driven, and someone else who might be more finance driven. There's a couple different roles there. So there, if you have an interest in that one, or anyone here has an interest in that one, obviously express. We haven't settled on anything yet, but it's definitely something that's out there that'll be of interest to folks, I think.
The committee that wrote that report for the by the Heritage Conservancy was sort of like that. There was somebody, but it was actually drawn from already existing township committees. So we had someone from traffic, someone from park and rec, someone from 2 of us, I think, from historic commission, 2 from the HARP. So it kind of like utilized the people they already had rather than trying to duplicate. So just be aware, Dan, that that's a problem, especially if we're trying to find people to fit these various committees. And we don't seem to really have too much direction for what we're doing other than advising the supervisors and assisting people in the township who want their homes on the National Register. They're really, and the couple of things that the township allows us to take care of, like the Slate Hill Cemetery, we don't really have a lot of projects. So that could certainly, we could certainly augment any committee that forms and certainly give them guidance for the history and for the National Register criteria that they have to follow in restoring or rehabilitating or whatever else they intend to do with all the properties that the township owns. Or conversely, you could give all that information, that responsibility to this committee, and we could handle it that way as well. So just keep it in mind that we've done that in the past. This committee actually did the restoration of the Tomlinson store. We assisted the Historic Society in their restoration of the schoolmaster's house. And we did actually supervise the last Keystone grant that the Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission used to fix the roof and paint the Satterthwaite House, 20 years ago. So we actually did that then, and we could certainly repeat that if you choose to go in that direction. I would just, you have to think about it. All right, so Patterson Farm is one of those things that's certainly still an issue. I did get one plan from Jim in the course of the last month. That was a minor lot change for the Miller lot in Edgewood Village. And I just want to call it to the attention of this group because it is really going to have substantial change to Edgewood Village when this happens. And I don't see any reason to stand in the way of it happening. I mean, the Millers have every bit of right to redivide their property the way they want in order to maximize their sales as they're leaving the township, unfortunately. And I was up at their personal sale yesterday, actually, and managed to acquire some Palmer House stuff for my son's Palmer House from their sale. But they've changed the lot lines so that now there's going to be a 2.5 acre lot between their house and the Harris house in Edgewood Village. And if Mr. Troilo is planning 16 units on the 1 acre lot across the street, that tells me that this potential sale could potentially bring, upward of 25 new units directly next to the Palmer Tavern. So as that plays out, you're going to have to think about that as a supervisor. And so I don't know how to, maybe you could alert the rest of the supervisors that this is It's just going to be a substantial change to the way Edgewood Village looks and behaves. And it is part of the TND, which this group actually wrote, that we wanted this to happen to Edgewood Village. It is part of a planned change. It's just sad to realize it's going to happen this quickly. Because that's going to be.
And Helen, just to make sure I'm looking at on my other screen an aerial map. Are we talking about, I guess that's it's sort of an X-shaped intersection. And technically, I guess that's the western quadrant of the intersection.
Yes.
That
Northwest quadrant of the Heacock and Yardley Langhorne Road. Dave Miller's house.
there.
Yeah, Dave Miller's house, the house will be on the far western boundary of the new lot. The lot line next to that is the 2.5 acres that he has 5 acres. It will be the 2.5 acres that then goes to a developer. And I think he's already talking to developers. So it's kind of a done deal.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're coming in right now for a zoning change. There's a line change. It has to be addressed by the zoning board, but I don't think there's any way they can object to that. I mean, it's legal line change, and I just don't see any way that's going to be shifted, and it actually encourages kind of thing that we wanted. So Dave's house will be a beautiful house on a 2.5 acre lot. It's a 1765 dated house. There's a tavern license that proves that it was Jesse Palmer's Tavern in 1765. There's all kinds of history there. So it was there when Washington walked through this township. So it's one of those places that, it's very sad it's happening, but people age and they're moving out. And now the change is going to happen for the rest of the village. And you guys as supervisors are going to have to deal with what comes in and make sure that it keeps the ambiance of the village not overbuilding and not being out of scale, which is what
it's all subject to the overlay, right?
Yes, the HERB will have to rule on everything that goes in. So anyway, that is coming, but I just wanted to let the other members be aware of that coming. So other new business. Does anyone have anything to report? Anyone else on the commission have anything to report?
No.
Joe?
I have nothing new to report.
No, Becky?
I meant to say this last time, and we may have discussed this, but I saw in one of the recent Yardley Voice, publications that at the Veterans Park, near Edgewood Village, that they
Yes.
were going to put a plaque with different, veterans from the township. And I was just wondering, is that going to include the ones that are at Slate Hill Cemetery? Because they don't have family members to
No.
advocate for them. So can we do
Good
that?
question.
It's a great question.
Well, interesting that you should mention that, because when the original Edgewood Village overlay was done and it was created as a commercial district, that park was left out. So that park is not actually part of the TND, and it's not part of the overlay. It's township owned. So they at one point gave it to this Veterans Committee. So it's entirely the purview of the Veterans Committee. So Dan, we could ask you to have them touch base with us so we could include that. That's a very good suggestion, Becky.
Because I was just thinking they don't have family
you're
members,
right.
a lot of them, that would put them
And
in there.
Yeah, there's 20 Civil War veterans, and there's probably, I haven't proved it yet, but I'm pretty sure that Joshua Anderson is there. I know Daniel Anderson is there. There was an old Daniel Anderson tombstone, it's gone now. But that was there, and Elijah Anderson is there, and they were Revolutionary War soldiers.
Right.
So, and I can check out some more to see what we can find. There is a plaque for Revolutionary soldiers in Lower Makefield from Stillwell's company in Floral Vale, just for your information. When Floral Vale went in, Mr. Luca, he asked to take down all the outbuildings, and we balked and balked, and Grace was like, Grace Gottschalk was on this at the time, and she said, well, if we let you take it down, you're going to put in a clock tower, then we want you to memorialize the Stockton family and all these Revolutionary War veterans on your clock tower, and they did it. So
Well, then they should be there. Yeah, they should be, like, that's the thing, like the
Yeah.
ones that are so long ago, if there's no, like, we should,
There's no direct family, or when we were trying to contact them, remember, for the memorial,
Right.
nobody wanted to even acknowledge because they were afraid the township was contacting them to take responsibility for taking care of the graves. So yeah,
Right.
nobody actually acknowledges that they have Civil War veterans.
So there could be even more that
Yeah.
that aren't in the, but I don't know how you get the inventory of that, but it's something that I thought of because it would be nice to include the ones going all the way back, yeah, to the
Yeah,
revolution.
absolutely.
Yeah. Helen, do you know
So-
Kathy Craig?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yes.
she basically runs all this stuff, right?
Right.
So would you like me to send her an email, or do you want to send her an email and copy me?
Oh,
Just
I will
giving her
do
a
that.
heads up.
I will put that on my to-do list, on my action items. Helen will contact Kathy Craig. Her kids in our scout troop, so.
I Figured you had some
Yeah,
connection.
you know everybody. Yeah, I know. So that's all I have, guys. Thank you so much for coming. And
I'm sorry, can I ask Dan one question?
okay,
Dan, I was looking at the mixed use overlay district, the ordinance that passed in 2020. And in there's a clause that talks about the scope of the HARB. And it basically says that it has responsibility for historically significant buildings that are listed in the Survey of Historic Resources in Lower Makefield, 2007, 2008. But I haven't been able to find that survey online, nor do I know, so I don't know what's in it, nor do I know what it takes to put something in it. Do you have any insight into that?
I don't right now. I think I'm mixing it because we've done the 2007 through 2009 time period. There were lots of surveys that we had an open space survey done. We had stormwater basin survey done, I think, and we had the strategic vision thing for Patterson Farm we were just talking about. I've seen all those. I'm not certain that I've seen this one, but I'm not surprised it was done.
I think it's referring to the description in the zoning for the historic district, the historic commercial district. It's not only a physical description, it's also a quote survey description from the BHMC. That's included as part of the legal definition.
There's a legal description that, okay.
Yes.
I got
so,
you.
So that's what it is. And it basically says their responsibility for these particular houses that are named, and then for district that's laid out in a surveyor's meets and bounds.
Yeah.
And then as added, and then supervisors over the years have had this gentleman's agreement to add in other shopping center, McCaffrey Shopping Center, as well as Giant, because a corner of the Giant Shopping Center was within those meets and bounds. So that's how they both got kind of added into the HARB's purvey of they have to rule over anything that changes in that area. But I think that's all it is, Joe. It's not a township wide. I can tell you that back in 1996, because it's still painful, we had a supervisor, Dave Stile at the time, who wanted to create a historic overlay for the entire township, which was really amazing. And so that is when we redid our historic survey of what buildings were still standing in Lower Makefield. I sent all that information to Jim. He asked me for it again, and I sent it all to him again. And at that point, we put together an ordinance to put it in, and we were firmly rejected by many homeowners who came out at a huge meeting at the township, standing room only, to scream at little old me as chairman of the commission at the time, that no, we don't want you telling us what to do with our houses. So the entire ordinance was thrown out. Unfortunately, in order to protect some of these houses, that's probably the only way going forward that we're going to be able to do it. So I would raise the idea that possibly that is something we might want to revisit. Thank you, Dan, for bringing it up.
Yeah,
But it was painful. It was really very personally upsetting to see that, you know, people just really do not want to give up that level of stewardship to the community. So it was a shame, but that's what happens. You know, as I said, going forward, so many of these old structures, there is another one that has recently become endangered, and that is down on off of Big Oak Road in that development that is up against Falls Township. There's an old house called the Hutchinson House, which Dave Broadway used to own. And it's I can't remember the name of the road now, but it's at the very edge of our township. And it has a beautiful 1700 stone house and a gorgeous barn that is probably a 3-story barn, which needs new siding and a new roof, etc. And a bunch of other outbuildings, an old smokehouse and it's for sale. It's down to about 469,000 at this point. And people are coming in and asking, can they demolish the barn? And, you know, how can we split this into 2 lots? And, oh, it's just painful to see that probably happen because we haven't had that ordinance in place. Dave Broadway's was one of the ones that we were worried about then. And, you know, I don't know if we can continue to protect it. Just saying. And the Miller property now coming up, it reminds me that this may happen all over the township. So this ordinance would have protected properties over 75 years old. And now we're 20 years past that. So we're talking a whole different spectrum of time that we would have to try to protect. And, you know, I don't know about houses that were in the 1940s and 50s, how many of those are deemed historic, but technically, according to PHMC, they actually are. So we're looking at a whole different area. There was a lot of pressure at one point to have Westover and the development toward Morrisville, Fair Hill, you know, that whole area near off of Ferry Road as another historic district, which would make it then under the protection of a HARB for architecture change. But again, this all is something that we need to kind of revisit. And then Dan, I'll put it to you to inform, since we're not educating our Board of Supervisors at all, that is a future consideration. We're probably 2 historic districts. Arbor Lee should probably be a 3rd. I know that Edge Hill Gardens, that's what it is. Edge Hill Gardens is the oldest planned development in Bucks County. It's #1 in the planning book because I actually went and looked at it at one point just to see what was the first. And it had incredible things within its planning unit that today would never pass, like against noxious people, against noxious industries that couldn't be built in that development, if you know what I'm saying. There were a lot of restrictions that today would never pass muster. But it is really an interesting document. The fact that it's the oldest in Bucks County is pretty amazing. Okay, well, that's all I have. And thank you so much all for coming out. And we will see you in May.
All right. And just before we go, Becky, obviously, thank you again.
Yes.
Joe, check your email. Jim already responded to us that he just has to upload the data, the pictures and other data for the Mill Road house.
I'm going to continue to invite Jim Majewski to come to these meetings in case, you know, he always used to stop down when we were in the township and kind of give us the up and up what's going on. And I hope we can get back together soon. I really wanted to have this outside, but, you know, I got overruled.
Dan, do you have a feel for when we can go back to in-person meetings? Have you discussed that?